The Sotria bee, Mrs. Minata Conner's baby, an industrial cashew nut processing company in the city of Banfora, just about 400 kilometers from Ouagadougou. More than 300 people are employed here, most of them, about 90% women, and from poor backgrounds.
Burkina Faso's bold bet on cashew, a new era of local industry and empowerment. On May 22, 2025, something remarkable happened in Burkina Faso. The kind of event that rarely grabs international headlines but quietly signals a major national shift. Under the leadership of President Ibrahim Traore, the country laid the foundation for a large-scale cashew apple processing plant in the town of Penny, a move that blends strategic planning, economic empowerment, and grassroots inclusion. The decision to build the factory wasn't made on a whim. Burkina Faso produces over 2 million tons of cashew apples annually. Yet for years, much of it has gone to waste. Most people know the cashew nut, but few talk about the apple, the fruit attached to the nut, which is highly perishable and often discarded, until now. The government, seeing the missed opportunity, has decided to act. The new facility in Penny will not only process 50,000 tons of cashew apples annually, but also turn them into marketable products such as concentrate, juice, wine, vinegar, and ethyl alcohol. The project isn't just about processing fruit. It's about turning an overlooked agricultural byproduct into a national asset. This unit is about adding value to what we already produce, a government spokesperson explained during the groundbreaking ceremony. We're not importing solutions, we're building from within. The plant is expected to create 112 permanent jobs and over 1,000 temporary jobs, many of which will go to local women and young people. In a country where youth unemployment remains high and opportunities in rural areas are scarce, this could be a game changer. But the project isn't just about jobs. It's about building a system, a support structure. Take the location. Penny isn't a major city. It's strategically positioned between Bobo Dioulasso and Orodara, two major cashew-producing zones. By placing the factory there, the government is making collection and transport of raw materials more efficient. They're also involving women-led cooperatives in the harvesting and collection of cashew apples, ensuring that the economic benefits ripple through the community. Then there's the infrastructure. This factory won't be operating in isolation. It will include a clinic, a nursery for workers' children, a cafeteria, and a product quality control lab, all on site. These aren't afterthoughts. They're part of a vision that respects the people behind the work. If we want sustainable progress, said a member of the project team, we must build workplaces where people are supported, especially women. They carry the weight of labor and family. Giving them a space to work and care for their children, that's not luxury, that's dignity. That dignity shows in the numbers too. The total investment is 6.65 billion CFA francs, and by its third year, the plant is expected to deliver a net return of 29 million CFA francs. That's not just good economics, it's smart development, and the timeline is tight. President Traore has made it clear. The factory must be operational by December 31, 2025. Contractors are under strict orders to complete construction by then, so the unit can begin processing the moment the next harvest arrives. The government will also inject over 500 million CFA annually into buying cashew apples from local producers at fair prices. This isn't charity, it's market stimulation. When smallholder farmers are paid well, they reinvest in their land, their children's education, and their communities. For many, this feels like the beginning of something larger, a movement, not just a project. At the ceremony, there was a quiet but powerful energy in the air. Local families watched with cautious hope. Women stood near their baskets of harvested fruit. Elders nodded. Young people whispered about job opportunities. This wasn't politics, it was personal. And it's not an isolated effort. As one local content creator who filmed the event noted, Burkina Faso already has a mango processing facility in Koudougou. But this cashew apple initiative is different. It's fully government-owned and government-driven. It's a sign that the state is stepping up not only to attract investors but to build national capacity from the ground up. Critics might point out that factories alone don't solve structural issues, and that's fair. But the mood on the ground is changing, especially when people see their leaders visiting work sites, checking on staff welfare, and demanding transparency. According to eyewitnesses, government ministers didn't just come to cut ribbons. They asked questions. How are the workers being paid? Do they have housing? Are there plans for childcare? It's that kind of attention, To people, not just production, that's setting this initiative apart. And the message coming from Burkina Faso's leadership is loud and clear. Development isn't about charity. It's about giving people the tools to build their own future. From the outside, it may seem like just another factory, but for the people of Peni and beyond, it represents something more. A break from dependency, a path towards self-sufficiency, a shift in mindset. And this is just the beginning. Factories, hospitals, and a new mindset. Burkina Faso's national rebuild picks up speed. By the time the cashew apple factory in Peni is fully operational, it won't be standing alone. It will be part of a much wider push, a strategic wave of infrastructure and industrial development that's quietly reshaping Burkina Faso's economic landscape in 2025. In fact, officials say that by the end of December, a stunning number of public works will be completed across the country, not only factories but housing, hospitals, clinics, schools, and more. Each project is part of a deliberate pattern: build local, hire local, and serve local needs. President Ibrahim Traore, who took power amid political turbulence, seems to have embraced a leadership style rooted in action. Instead of relying on foreign donations or long-winded speeches, his administration is moving fast with boots-on-the-ground execution. Observers and locals alike have taken note of one thing: the government is working, and it's working for the people. The pattern is consistent. At every new site, whether it's a processing plant, a hospital, or a rural road, ministers and top officials don't just show up for photos. They talk to workers. They ask about pay, housing, safety, and whether the teams on the ground feel respected. One video clip that surfaced from a recent ministerial visit shows the Minister of Commerce and Industry speaking directly to factory workers. His first question wasn't about production targets or export potential, it was about the well-being of the staff. Where do you live? How far did you walk to get here? Are you being paid on time? He asked. And what about the women? Is there a place for their children while they work? It's a small but powerful moment, one that signals a new approach to leadership, one where development is not just measured in GDP, but in how people are treated in the process of building it. There's also a growing emphasis on self-sufficiency. Burkina Faso, like many West African nations, has long been reliant on imported goods and foreign aid. But that model has often meant dependency, delayed progress, and frustration. Today, that tide is shifting. With government-backed processing units like the one in Peni, Burkina Faso is starting to build internal value chains. For cashew, mango, shea butter, and other local commodities, the new goal isn't just to export raw materials, it's to transform them locally and keep the profits in country. In fact, even in neighboring towns, there are whispers of similar factories being prepared for construction, including another major mango processing plant, which may be either privately or publicly managed. The idea is catching on. Leaders are thinking, why let our harvest rot or sell it cheap when we can process it ourselves? It's a long overdue question, and one that's energizing both workers and farmers across the region. That's especially true for young people. For years, unemployment and underemployment among Burkina Faso's youth have been deeply discouraging. Many have left for cities or even abroad in search of better lives. But now, with new factories and training programs taking shape in rural areas, the government is offering an alternative. Work where you live. Build your future at home. Some initiatives are even tied to broader regional partnerships, including the Alliance of Sahel States, which aims to deepen cooperation between Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso in trade, security, and industrial growth. While critics question how sustainable these alliances will be long-term, it's hard to argue with the momentum they're generating in the short term. Locals report a renewed sense of optimism, especially when they witness the direct investment happening in their towns. One young woman who hopes to join the workforce at the new Peni factory said it plainly, "This is the first time I feel like someone built something here with us in mind." That sentiment is echoed in the numbers. In communities where new facilities are being built, local economies are already showing signs of revival. More trade, more demand for housing, more school enrollments, and even new small businesses popping up around construction zones. But even beyond the economic data, what's happening in Burkina Faso right now is about something deeper, a shift in mindset. For decades, much of Africa's development narrative has been filtered through foreign lenses. Aid agencies, international consultants, multilateral institutions. Now, in places like Peni and Bobo Dioulasso, people are seeing what it looks like when the state leads development with its own people at the center. There's also a cultural element at play here, one of pride. People are watching their leaders take action. They're watching ministers check on factory floor conditions. They're seeing schools and clinics pop up next to industrial sites. They're hearing timelines that don't stretch for decades, but end-of-year deadlines. And most importantly, they're seeing things actually get done. Sure, the government has its critics. There are questions about whether this pace can be maintained, whether the funding models are sustainable, and whether rural areas will be able to keep up with supply chain demands. These are fair concerns, but the results so far have been hard to ignore. What's also unique is the government's communication style. Instead of pushing out flashy ads or top-down press releases, much of the buzz around these projects is spreading through local content creators, grassroots media, and citizen reporters. Everyday people, many of them women, are uploading videos, conducting interviews on their phones, and documenting what's happening in real time. It's authentic, it's raw, and it's resonating. One such video, viewed thousands of times online, shows a group of women at a factory site explaining how they'll collect cashew apples, manage distribution, and still be able to care for their children, thanks to the on-site nursery and cafeteria that's being planned. We feel seen, one of them says. We're not just labor, we are part of the vision. That feeling of inclusion, of dignity, of purpose, may be the most transformative part of all. From the dusty town of Pini to the border towns of Mali and Niger, there's something stirring across Burkina Faso. It's not loud, it's not polished, but it's real. In 2025, under the determined leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traore, the country is writing a new story, and the rest of the world is finally starting to notice. At the center of this story is a radical shift in mindset. Africa can and must build for itself. This idea isn't new, but for decades, the reality has been different. Development across much of the continent has long been shaped by foreign consultants, foreign donors, and foreign interests. But what's happening now in Burkina Faso, and in parts of Mali and Niger, represents something more disruptive, a break from that pattern. And for some global powers, this isn't just inconvenient, it's unsettling. Over the last year, as Traore's administration pushed forward with infrastructure development, national industrialization, and youth-focused empowerment projects, Western diplomatic circles have grown increasingly wary. Behind closed doors, there's concern that Burkina Faso, once dependent on foreign aid, is now building self-sustaining institutions that don't rely on traditional power brokers. Some of this anxiety became visible earlier this year when a joint US and EU development proposal aimed at offering support packages to the Sahel region was formally rejected by a group of 13 African nations, including Burkina Faso. The reason? The packages came with strings attached: cut ties with non-Western partners, surrender control of certain resource sectors, and align with foreign policy goals. To the leadership in Ouagadougou, that sounded less like partnership and more like pressure. So they said no. That single word sent quiet shockwaves through Washington and Brussels, because for the first time in recent memory, a cluster of African nations, small, still recovering, still building, refused to play by the old rules. And they did it with clarity. We are not saying we don't want support, a spokesperson for the Burkinabe government said. We are saying we want it on our terms, in line with our goals, and with full respect for our sovereignty. That position has resonated deeply within the region. The formation of the AES alliance, uniting Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, is part of that vision. While officially focused on regional security and economic coordination, the alliance is quickly becoming a platform for broader ideological alignment, a shared belief that Africa's progress must be led by Africans. And it's not just rhetoric, you know. In addition to the factories and infrastructure already underway, AES countries have begun pooling resources, harmonizing trade routes, and launching coordinated youth employment programs. There's even talk of establishing a joint regional currency, though that idea remains in the early stages. Meanwhile, China and Russia have quietly increased their presence, not through flashy military bases or extractive contracts, but through low-interest loans, technical support, and direct trade. That shift naturally has made Western diplomats even more uneasy. But on the ground, in places like Peni or Koudougou, those concerns feel distant. What people see is change. They see women being hired, roads being fixed, schools being built, factories going up, and they see it happening without waiting years for foreign approvals. There's a deep emotional undertone to this, a sense of healing after decades of frustration. One local elder put it best: "We waited so long for others to help us. Now we are learning to help ourselves, and it feels better." To be clear, the road ahead is still tough. Burkina Faso faces enormous challenges, including a persistent threat from armed insurgencies in the north, limited access to global markets, and ongoing economic strain. There's also the risk that centralized power, even with good intentions, can drift toward authoritarianism. But for now, the popular sentiment is one of cautious hope and fierce pride. And it's not just about the material gains, it's about visibility, about dignity, about agency. In previous decades, many African development projects were designed for communities, not with them. Today, in Traore's Burkina Faso, local leaders are showing up to job sites, talking to laborers, adjusting wages, inspecting housing plans, and taking direct feedback from citizens. These aren't symbolic gestures. They're part of a new political culture that says, we are accountable to the people, not to donors. Even online, a new generation of Burkinabe voices is rising. Content creators, vloggers, and youth reporters are sharing daily updates from factory sites, rural road projects, and community centers. They're filming mothers preparing fruit at processing plants. They're uploading interviews with local youth getting trained in new trades. They're not waiting for international media to tell their story. They're doing it themselves. And these stories are reaching beyond borders, being shared across West Africa, across the continent, and into diasporas around the world. So where does this all lead? For Burkina Faso, the future is still being written. There will be setbacks, there will be resistance, and there will be attempts, from both inside and outside, to slow or redirect the momentum. But what's certain is this: something foundational has changed. A generation is rising that is no longer asking for permission to build. They are simply building. Factories, schools, clinics, roads, and, most importantly, belief. Belief that they can do it. Belief that their future doesn't have to be outsourced. Belief that the dignity of work, the pride of community, and the wealth of the land can all belong to them, not just to multinational shareholders or foreign diplomats. That belief may be Burkina Faso's most powerful export yet. And if it continues to spread, it won't just change one country, it could transform a continent. As we close this special three-part report, one thing is clear: Burkina Faso is no longer waiting. From the fertile cashew lands of Paini to the construction zones across the country, a new chapter is unfolding, one defined by purpose, resilience, and homegrown leadership. What we're witnessing isn't just economic development. It's a cultural and political awakening, a government that builds factories and daycare centers, a nation investing in its youth, women, and rural communities, a movement that puts people first and invites them to be part of the solution. At a time when much of the world is distracted by division and debt, this quiet revolution in West Africa reminds us what transformation really looks like. Local people solving local problems with local resources and doing it with dignity. But what do you think? Do you believe this new wave of leadership in Burkina Faso and across the Sahel is the beginning of real change? Are you hopeful about Africa's future being shaped from within, not dictated from abroad? We want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters. Support this report by hitting the like button if you believe in the work being done. Share this video with someone who needs to see what's happening on the ground in Africa today. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next powerful update on the region's transformation. Thank you for watching, and thank you for standing with truth, with progress, and with the people rewriting their own story. Africa is rising, and this is only the beginning.